I'm Ryan, and this is Rolls in the Family. And if you're watching this, there's a good chance that you like board games. And if you like board games, there's also a good chance that you may spend some time on the internet looking into board game reviews, trying to figure out what's the next game you should get, what's going to be your next favorite game of all time. And one of the challenges you might find in this process is that all of the reviewers on the internet have very different tastes in games, and the weight of their review for you personally is really dependent on how much their tastes align with your tastes. You might see somebody that really dislikes a game, but you see that all the games they like and dislike don't match up with you, so that doesn't really mean a whole lot for you personally. So it can be a little difficult as you kind of start to learn which reviewers you align more with and kind of trying to gather the information that's a little bit more personalized for you to make a decision. Wouldn't it be nice if you had a way to, for a given game you're looking into, see a list of review feedback that is curated to people that have similar tastes in games to yourself, so that you really are getting, applicable information about whether this is a good game for you? Well, I am here to tell you how to do exactly that using a feature in BoardGameGeek. It's utilizing the GeekBuddy feature, and I think it might just be the most underrated feature on BoardGameGeek. No clickbait here. I actually do think that there's a lot of people that maybe don't know what you can kind of do with this feature, and I found it to be very, very helpful for myself, so I'm going to kind of walk through what my process has been for kind of building up this tool that then I can use to get that personalized kind of review feedback. But let's back up a second, because maybe you're watching this and you're like, I've never even heard of BoardGameGeek. So I have it pulled up here. BoardGameGeek at its heart is like the most popular board game centric website database. You can think of it similar to a site like IMDb for movies, or any of these sites that are a database of a lot of things. So all these board games are in the system, but then it has a lot of user-generated content. And that's really where BoardGameGeek thrives. As it got popular, it started way back in the early 2000s, really gained the popularity and got a lot of user contribution, whether that's in reviews or answering questions or in the forums. Like if you go into any given game on BoardGameGeek and look in the kind of forums and stuff for that game, it's very populated with valuable information. And that's really what elevates the site to be hugely powerful, is just the wealth of information that has been collected there over the years. And so I highly recommend it as a resource, generally speaking, for board games. But I'm going to walk through kind of the process for building up this system of Geek Buddies that will allow you to get this personalized feedback. And I actually created a new Rolls in the Family account so that I could kind of do this from scratch instead of using my own account. And that is the first thing that you'll want to make sure that you'll have done, is you'll need to make an account on BoardGameGeek. One thing that's kind of interesting with BoardGameGeek, when you make an account, you'll notice something like you won't be able to add a profile picture, an avatar. And that's because BoardGameGeek actually, there's a few features that they kind of they make you work for it a little bit, but they kind of have a currency on the website called Geek Gold. And you need a certain amount of Geek Gold to actually purchase your avatar to be able to do that. And then you can get other things on the site like micro badges or tip people's comments with Geek Gold. It's just kind of like this internal currency. I will say, if you are making a new account, I have my account and Daniel's account linked down in the description below. Go ahead and just send me a message on BoardGameGeek, and I will send you some Geek Gold, and you can get yourself an avatar. We want to help our Rolls in the Family viewers out, be able to get their identity on the website. / I've just amassed more Geek Gold than I know what to do with over the last 15 years. So I have no problem sending you some if you send me a message. Once you have your account, though, let's kind of walk through the steps, and just at a high level, we're going to kind of go through this process of first building up a list of Geek Buddies, and specifically Geek Buddies that we think have similar tastes in games to us. Now, you might hear Geek Buddy and think like, what is this, Facebook for board games? And that maybe, honestly, I think why some people maybe haven't explored this feature as much is they're like, I'm not looking to social network on my board game research site. But there's some very powerful things that you're able to do with this Geek Buddy list, as we'll then follow up after that with. So what I would recommend is starting out by thinking, what is your favorite board game of all time? Hopefully there's a game that comes to mind for you, or a game you just really, really like. And you're going to look that up here on BoardGameGeek. So in my case, if you know me well, you know that I'm probably going to say Agricola is the one that I would first think of. Classic. And so I'm going to go to the game page here, and I'm going to go down to the ratings tab. So we're going to click into that, which you can see lots and lots of people have rated this game. We can actually see 74,000 ratings and 14,000 comments on Agricola. And here, I am going to click on the 10 bar graph here to sort specifically by people that have rated it a 10 or a 9.5 or 10. So this already is pushing me towards people that have a similar opinion of Agricola to me. We're going to filter this further, though, by going to this comments dropdown and going to has comments. So now we got people that have rated it extremely highly, but have also filled in the comment field, because BoardGameGeek allows people alongside their kind of rating to add any comments here. And this is where this gets really powerful, is there's a lot of users that use that comment box to put their thoughts on the game, sometimes to borderline huge review length comments of their thoughts on the game. And that's really what we're going to try to lean into here. We are trying to find people that have similar tastes in games, that rate a lot of games and rate newer games, like are still active, and that leave really useful, valuable comments on a lot of their entries. So what I would usually do here, and I'm going to do a much abridged version here, is I would scroll through here, and every time I see a comment that like feels valuable, you know, it's like, okay, like, you know, this one, it's got some information here. This is a nice comment. This one maybe, you know, there's some of these. If I was really doing this, I'd probably be more aggressive of just opening a bunch of them. You know, I'm on a Mac, so I'm just doing command click to just open tabs of all these different users. And so I'm just going to do a few examples here, but you really would want to be doing a lot of them so that you can try to find as many as possible. And then for each of these users, you're going to go into their profile, and you're going to check a few things. The first thing I would check is I would scroll down and I would see how many board games have they rated overall. In this case, this person has only rated 33 games. And so that's probably lower than the threshold I would recommend. I'm usually looking for people at minimum have rated 100 games, just because the value in this is going to be them having rated more things that we're maybe interested in looking at. So I would pass on this one. And I would look at the next one. And I'd scroll down. 43 games. Again, probably not enough to justify me adding them. And you can be as picky or as not picky as you want here. But I found that being a little bit picky, you can still usually find enough ones that are good picks. So here, I like what I see. 313 board games. I like the nice bell curve distribution. It shows that this user kind of, you know, if I see somebody that's like almost all their ratings are 10s or something, it's like, well, that's probably not going to be as valuable. And so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click into these ratings, which you can do by just clicking that number. And I'm going to sort by their highest rated. So we know they love Agricola because that's how we found them. But what I now want to see is, do we align generally on other games? Now, you're not going to align on everything. Like it's different individuals, but you're looking, first I would look through the highly rated ones and be like, do I see ones that are like, ooh, that's one. So for example, for me personally, I see Terraforming Mars here. I'm like, I love Terraforming Mars. That already is another sign that we're kind of maybe aligned in our tastes. Through the Ages is a game I really enjoy. Underwater Cities is a game I really enjoy. So I'm liking what I'm seeing here, and there's nothing up here that's like oh, I really don't like that game, and they're rating it really highly. So then the next thing I do is I go down probably to like their 4 ratings about, and I just look for any like no-goes. Like if there would be a game down here that's one of my favorite games or a game I really love, that might make me question if this person aligns with my tastes as much. So I kind of look at these low ones. This is a game I also rate very lowly, so that's another sign of alignment. And I don't see anything here that really would concern me about how we align. And so that has now passed all of my filters for whether this person would make a good addition to my GeekBuddy list. And so I'm going to go back to this page, and on their profile, there's this little arrow. They kind of hide this feature here. There's this arrow that you can drop down some actions on that user, and there's an option to add GeekBuddy. So we're going to do that, and we're going to click yes. Successfully added to our GeekBuddy list. And so we would continue that. like I said, I'm just doing a couple examples here. This person, 683 games. Love to see it. Really good comments, lots of plays. I'm a fan of Terra Mystica, Feast for Odin. And so you're going through this process just individually evaluating, is this going to be someone, kind of how you want to be thinking about it, and especially with the comments, is like, if I was looking into a game like this, would a comment like this be like valuable, because if it's coming from somebody that aligns with your taste, that's going to give you some good information. So let's go back and add this one as well. So I have already, before recording this, added a bunch of Geek Buddies on this to kind of get ahead to prep for filming. And so you can see if I go to my Geek Buddies in the drop down here, if I click edit, I can see all my Geek Buddies here. Look at all these Geek Buddies. And really more is going to be better. I think here, let's actually look. If I go to my profile and I go to Geek Stuff, we can see that I have 83 Geek Buddies now added on this count. I think on my main account, I have like 170 something. And that's what I actually, use for this. I think you really would want to be up closer to that. It's just going to make the feature more powerful, the more good quality Geek Buddies that you're able to add. And it's something you can come back and, I'm going to spend, 20 minutes just trying to beef up my Geek Buddy list a little bit, is going to pay off. But once we have done this, so say, you've built up your close to 100 Geek Buddies that you've curated. I use the example of Agricola as being like one of my favorite games. What I would recommend after that is like go to your second favorite game and do the same process there. Then I would say pick a game that you really love that's pretty different from those games. So in my case, I did Agricola and Terraforming Mars first. And those are both pretty kind of like Euro games, strategy games. They're kind of in a similar space. But another game I really love is Eldritch Horror, which is a 3-hour cooperative, highly thematic, very random kind of role-playing, dice chucking. It's the type of game that there's a lot of people that love Agricola and Terraforming Mars that would hate Eldritch Horror. And so I want to look up Eldritch Horror because I want to represent that piece in my taste and find people. And especially when I find people that rate something like that highly and rate things like Agricola or some of these other games I like highly, it's like, okay, we have a similar taste kind of across these very different types of games. So hitting on different genres that you really enjoy is going to be helpful for rounding out your Geek Buddies. And then the other thing I would do is think of what's a really new game that you've enjoyed. So when I was doing my example, I recently played Slay of the Spire, the board game, really, really enjoyed it. And so I went through the process, same process with that game. And the reason for doing that is everybody that's rated Slay the Spire, the board game, which came out like within the last year, is clearly kind of playing a lot of new games. I mean, not necessarily a lot of new games, but you want to find people that are playing new releases and leaving this feedback on it, because that's going to allow you to have information about newer releases, which is often a way that I use this list. But once you have it all finished, let's actually look at how you're going to use this to get value out of it. So if I navigate back here to my Geek Buddies section, you'll notice that way to the right, there is a ratings link. So let's click on that. Might take a bit to load here. But this is essentially kind of like how you would look at BoardGameGeek's top 100, and it's the aggregated top games of everybody on the site. Here I can kind of get that view, but just through the filter of my Geek Buddies, which I've already identified as being similar in taste to me. So the default view here doesn't have a minimum number of raters. So obviously there's tons of things that people have rated a 10 that it's only one of my Geek Buddies has done. And it's like, maybe more obscure or just not a lot of people have played it. So what I would recommend, and it's going to depend on how many Geek Buddies you added total to be how much you could kind of drive this up. But let's say like 25 minimum raters. Like I only want to look at games that at least 25 of my Geek Buddies have rated. And then you can do ones that you don't own. That would be looking at like if you actually use BoardGameGeek's collection feature to mark what you've owned and haven't rated. Now, on this particular example account, I haven't owned or rated any game. So this is doing absolutely nothing for my filter. But you have those options. And then you can click Go. And what this is going to do is give me a list, a ranked list by rating of the highest rated games among my Geek Buddies that have at least 25 ratings. So obviously it makes sense that Agricola is way up on here because that was one of the ways that I drove the game. Interesting to see Gaia Project so high up, a 9 out of 10 with 38 ratings. I do really love Gaia Project. I ended up selling it and replacing it with Age of Innovation, which is 95% the same game. But if I hadn't played it, this would have been an excellent recommendation for me. I really enjoy Brass. I really enjoy Arc Nova. So I can, just looking at this, I can see that it aligns with my taste strongly. And obviously, if I was actually doing this on my account where I've added games into my collection and rated them, those ones wouldn't be showing up because I've already played them. But if I scroll down here, Lisboa is actually the first example of one that I haven't played. And so what this tells me is like, man, Lisboa might be one that I want to check out. Like it seems like people like me really like this game. And so the next thing you can do is over in this column, there's an Analyze button. And if I click that, it is now going to give me all of the ratings and comments for all my Geek Buddies that have rated this game. And so this is where you are getting kind of what I described in the intro of this personalized list of review-like feedback on this game. And so I can kind of read through these. I mean, these are people rating it 10 out of 10, you know, what kind of information. And you'll see that depending on how the types of people you've added in, you'll get people that are putting a lot of information in there. You know, a lot of it's really valuable stuff because you already know that, you know, you're at least similar tastes to this person. And so you can kind of scroll down and see all the high ratings. Oftentimes it's very nice to look at the people that don't rate it so highly and kind of why didn't it work for them? I mean, here it's pretty strong. We're not even seeing anything below a 6. But you know, another one, like let's say Arc Nova is a kind of newer game. It's a game I enjoy, but if I was looking for that, 10 out of 10 scratches that Terraforming Mars itch. Well, I love Terraforming Mars. You can kind of look through these, and it's you're not always going to have comments on everyone, but if you've built up a good list, you for most games will probably have a good amount of personalized information. And I mean, look at things like this. This is a hugely valuable amount of feedback on a game to be able to kind of better understand if it is a fit for you. So that's really now the tool that you have at your disposal. You know, you can kind of go through that ratings view to kind of just get a list of maybe find out about games you didn't even know about and then read about them. But then you have this Analyze feature, and the Analyze feature is actually built into every game page. So let's say, for example, that I wanted to look up like a new game. So for example, a very new game that I have had my eye on is SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And this is a very new game. You'll see much fewer ratings here, but you'll see this GeekBuddy analysis link right next to ratings and comments. Clicking that drops me straight into this view where I'm going to see my Geek Buddies information on this game. Now, this is a very new game, so we're probably not going to have very much. We've got a few ratings here, but the little bit I do have says, man, they're really loving it. I mean, an 8.75, we've got 9.998, and this person seemed to have absolutely loved it. Kind of talks about quick actions, but full of combos. That's all stuff that makes me go, ooh, I think this is definitely a game that I should keep an eye on. And so this is something I have used a lot, honestly, since I've set it up. Whether it's with new games that I'm checking out, I often am looking into, so many games have come out over the last 20 years. I haven't played a lot of them. So a lot of times I'm looking back at a game from 2010 that, this one actually, I wonder if this is one I want to try. And I usually have a lot of feedback to go off in here. So I am curious. That's basically it, kind of the offering. I definitely recommend going back and trying to grow that GeekBuddy list because it's just going to make it more and more valuable. I'm curious if anybody watching this does this already. Like, how underrated is this feature? Maybe everybody's already doing it, and I'm just making an assumption here. But I have a feeling that even some people that have been using BoardGameGeek for a long time might have not kind of known how you could use the GeekBuddy feature to get this kind of feedback. Hey, thanks for watching. If you found this helpful, thumbs up the video, maybe subscribe to the channel for more board gaming content. Like I said, we have links down below to BoardGameGeek, to my profile on BoardGameGeek. I'll get you some Geek Gold if you ask for it. Otherwise, we've got some other videos here you can check out on the channel, and we will see you in the next one.